And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. The government shutdown continues.
House Democrats plan to introduce legislation funding most of the government through the end of September. Homeland Security would be funded for about a month, with no money for a border wall. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
Open up the government as we continue to debate what is the best way to secure our border.
Majority Leader Mitch McConnell calls the legislative package a political sideshow.
It isn't comprehensive. It ignores the needs of border security.
The White House has called the plan a non-starter. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland.
Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. So there we have it. The government shutdown continues, and we say to ourselves, we think to ourselves, what do we have to look forward to? Well, we've got Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. You heard yesterday her daughter saying that she'd cut your head off and you wouldn't even know it. Right? Is that any way to run a government? Is that really any way to run a bipartisan coalition type movement that wants to, people to get along? I don't know. I'm thinking to myself here that we are in for a rough, wild ride. And it's not going to get any easier. By the way, we've got this new poll out saying that Idaho and Oregon, one of the top states for people moving in, believe it or not, the most inbound state ever, the state of Vermont, the home of socialist Bernie Sanders. Who would want to live in Vermont? I'm sure they have lovely maple syrup. I'm sure they're wonderful people there when they're not voting for the socialists. Probably one of the most liberal parts of the country, rivaled only by Berkeley, California. And then we have people moving into Oregon, having a good time, doing all sorts of crazy things. And then we have what goes on here in Idaho, where we have people coming in and in and in. And we wonder, we're a state with finite resources. Can we really afford to have so many people coming here? No, we're not talking about building a wall, but we are talking about honest government, accountable government that is responsible to the people. And this show will once again, thanks to you, lead the Treasure Valley, lead the state of Idaho, in urging our elected officials to do the right thing, and that is to pass the repeal of the grocery tax. Now, many people say, well, what's the big deal? You want to talk about something that hits everybody, that helps everybody. That's the repeal of the grocery tax. Now, soon to be, as of tomorrow, former Governor Otter, he wasn't in favor of it. You heard now Governor-elect, soon to be Governor Little, saying, I want it repealed. If the governor wants it repealed, if the Republicans in the House and the Senate want it repealed, that should be the first item of business. You want to talk about goodwill? You want to talk about helping folks think that they've got responsible government? Pass the repeal of the grocery tax. I haven't really heard anything since the campaign. Have you? I remember when Tommy Alquist was running for governor, he said he would repeal it. I remember when Raul Labrador was running for governor, he said he would repeal it. Brad Little said he would repeal it. And we hope, again, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, we put out the olive branch to the elected officials. We'll see if we get them on. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're not so good. We always want good, compelling content. Say what you want about the contributors to this program, not the callers, the contributors to this program. They make it lively and entertaining, don't they? And that's what it's all about. And joining us now from Washington, Cassie Smedley. Cassie, good to have you with us. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year to you.
Well, here we are in Idaho. You're in Washington, and the new government regime starts. Your thoughts on Madam Speaker?
Here we go again, right? But I think it'll be a big day, of course, and I think that a Pelosi speakership she'll, I think, strong-arm her caucus into doing things that really aren't politically popular, and hopefully it'll be a very short-lived majority for them.
Well, that would be very nice, and 2 years does fly by. But we take a look at the Democrats, led by the press, salivating over investigations, salivating over things. What does that really have to do with infrastructure? What does that have to do with making the country better?
Well, that's exactly it. And I think you and I have talked about this before. At the end of the day, and especially if you are a freshman in Congress, which is your toughest reelection, that first reelection, you have to have something to write home about to your constituents. What have you done for me? How have you been fighting for me? And if you spend all of your time in Washington fighting against Donald Trump and fighting baseless investigations, that doesn't give you much to write home about. And exactly to your point, that doesn't give much to say, here's what I did for you today, for our community today, for our country today. And I think that's going to be a real problem. That's a big problem Pelosi has on her hands. I think she underestimates the thorn in the side that her new caucus will be to her. And it'll be interesting to see how they navigate it.
Well, you can take a look at the adventures of John Boehner, the adventures of Paul Ryan.
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, you think that it's a wonderful thing to have a majority, but with that comes a lot of voices. And what I do think is interesting about Republicans versus Democrats, and maybe it ended up being to our detriment in terms of getting the strongest possible bill accomplished, but we like to encourage everyone to have their voice. Nancy Pelosi doesn't. She likes her Democrat caucus on the back bench where she can see them. She likes to be alone at the top. She doesn't like folks who come out and supersede her spotlight. And the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is, the New York congresswoman who's like the blessed one. So far, she spent her time in D.C. protesting in Pelosi's office. And just yesterday, she joined with a group of other incoming members to say that they're not going to support the Democrats' House Rules package, which is usually just a formality. So that Pelosi is already having these issues and these members to contend with is not a good sign for getting their agenda accomplished. And to your earlier comment about what will they get accomplished, their package today, their HR 1, their big grand initiative, is all about campaign finance reform and PAC money. It's not about how we keep our economy moving. It's not about our farmers and families and education and and healthcare even. It's about stuff that I think the average American says that doesn't really affect my life in the day-to-day. So I think it'll be interesting.
Interesting, though, of course, all of us are wondering, what's the return on investment when we pay our taxes? I guess the good news about the government shutdown is the IRS is not accepting phone calls, but, what happens
a
if...
longer than usual wait.
Right, exactly. Anyone who's dealt with the IRS knows what you're talking about there. But here's the thing. I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, what if the government was shut down and nobody missed it?
And well, I think that's kind of what happened. Much of the shutdown has been over the holidays, and most folks were enjoying time with family. And I'm sorry for the workers who have been put out, but I think there's a lot of us who say, it's not all bad to take a breath and see what really are the priorities. But here's the other side of it. And here's why I think Donald Trump has a stronger hand than people are giving him credit for, certainly people in the mainstream media. He is fighting for a cause and for an issue, border security, national security, that we've been saying for a long time. Frankly, this debate has been going on longer than I've been alive, that we've been wanting to have a secure border and reform our immigration policy. And everybody promises to do it, and then they say, oh, it was just difficult, it didn't happen, and they let it go. And Donald Trump is saying, this is a promise I made, and this is one I want to keep because I'm the guy who has nothing to lose. All of my predecessors, they said, oh, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want this mark on my record. He doesn't care. Shut down the government. I'm getting border security. And I think that's the piece of the puzzle or the card that Pelosi and Schumer didn't anticipate him holding on to.
What about your friends in the media that continue to, say
Your
that?
friends too.
Right, but I mean, here we have the president of the United States actually doing what he says, and they're urging impeachment. They're urging that, if Nancy Pelosi could, somehow pull a coup. They're urging the economy to go down. They're highlighting the bad stories of the government shutdown. And you're right, our hearts and prayers go out to the workers. But on the other hand, the president is standing firm, and you're so right when people, I love it when Chuck Schumer says he's for border security. Come on.
Right. When he's been playing politics with us for 30 years. But That's it. It's a tale of two cities, or really a city versus a country. They talk about this in New York and D.C. and on Capitol Hill, and they say, it's Trump shut down and this is bad, and all the things you just listed. And then out in the country, we're saying we need him to hold strong, and we support him. And the narrative that you see on TV, the reason people aren't tuning in anymore is because it doesn't match how we're feeling. It doesn't match the conversations we're having. And so these people have no credibility. And I think Donald Trump and so many of us are saying, speak on. The more you say that, the more out of touch it is with our reality. And I think that betters our prospects and the president's reelection prospects, certainly, because he seems to be the only one in tune with the American people.
Indeed. So how do you see this playing out? By the way, we don't want to get you out of here without your thoughts on Senator Romney.
Well, I think here is, and this kind of dovetails into that conversation as well, that I'm not Pollyanna about the next 2 years. I think Democrats are going to make an uproar wherever they can. But there also is real opportunity to get things done. And I think just as we heard the president say to Senator-elect Romney, he extended the olive branch. He said, let's play on the same team. I think there's a lot of good work that we can do together. And even Mitt Romney in his interview yesterday seemed to sort of tamper down from his op-ed. He said, I like a lot of the policies. We agree on most of that stuff. It's just really more about style. But, I'm not going to stand in his way. I think I'll work with him more than I won't. And I think that's because he said his piece, but at the end of the day, he's a freshman senator, and he's got to have something to write home about. And while the people of Utah elected him, they also elected Donald Trump. They want to see government work. They want to see our leaders work together. And we certainly have enough ire to point at Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. We don't need to be turning it on each other. And I think that at the end of the day, that will prevail.
Well, I think the president was very accurate yesterday when he said, Mitt Romney, he's always tougher on Republicans than he's on Democrats. We saw that in 2012. And, the president endorsed him, helped him out. But it does seem to be a pattern with Mitt Romney being very tougher on Republicans than he was on President Obama. Many people thought, I did, that he had a really good chance to win in 2012.
Right. I think for Republicans, certainly Mitt Romney had all of the credentials you want in a president. Thought he could be great for the country and certainly a global leader as well. But the president did make a point. We wanted a fighter. I do think that was a top thing where we just felt like he wasn't fighting enough. It had nothing to do with his credentials, had nothing to do with his positions. All of those things are wonderful and obviously a very good man. But Donald Trump, we get a fighter. And I think that's what the difference between our politicians who have been successful and who have kept their seats is they've sort of taken on that moniker. So I'm going to fight for you. And forget your style. Just go out there and fight. And you can be a happy warrior, but I think that is the big difference. And I think Mitt Romney is getting that. We'll get that. But again, I was with our chairwoman this morning when she went to her Fox and Friends interview, and she was saying, our family, this is old hat for us. We're used to all of this, and she and her uncle have a great relationship, and they understand they're both just doing their job. But one line she said to me, she said, of course, the Reagan adage, somebody who agrees with you 80% of the time is your friend. And in her case, they're family. So we agree broadly on most all of the issues. We just got to get the work done, and I think that will happen.
Right. Isn't Mitt Romney her uncle?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Finally, back to our friends in the media. Will Republicans not buy into the media love affair like they used to have with John McCain? John McCain was their favorite Republican until he ran for president. And you have people, the folks on, the four-letter network, not to be confused with ESPN this morning, praising Senator Romney, the couple that they were married to other people, now they're married to each other. But, it's a Washington thing.
Right.
All of a sudden, they're saying Mitt Romney is the best. Now, I remember how they treated Mitt Romney, but, right. The idea that you can curry favor with the media at the expense of the team.
It's unfortunate that for the media loves Democrats, and then they love Republicans who are turning on Republicans. They love you so long as they can use you, and so long as you're on their side. They're not interested in the substance of your policy debates or anything like that. And that is a problem with our media today. And I think that's why so many of us, again, have turned elsewhere for our news, or we're not just keeping it on ad nauseum anymore because it's so transparent and the credibility is so low. And today he's their friend, and tomorrow they'll be back to pointing fingers at him again. But I hope that Romney knows that. And, wouldn't it be something if they end up working together on all of these legislative achievements? What will the media do then?
Exactly. And hopefully they will. Cassie, we always appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, great to be with you, and Happy New Year again.
All right. Happy New Year. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Getting back to this issue we're yapping about where, we're talking about this government shutdown. And not a lot of people are down with the government shutdown. They just kind of ho-hum. I guess if it would impact us directly, and then we have the rhetoric going on. But here we have the President of the United States about ready to face the Democrats in the House for the first time. The Democrats controlling the House. We've got Congressman Simpson, Congressman Fulcher, and people are talking. Before we get to that, though, how about some traffic and weather together?
7's Eric Gabbard.
And we go to Patriot Ray, who joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Patriot Ray.
Good morning. A little discussion about Romney. As far as I can tell, he's just another political hack. I had a lot of hope for him in 2012, but like everybody says, he did nothing to battle Obama. He just talked about the Republicans. Now the thing now it is as soon as a person going into politics starts talking about our great democracy and how it's being destroyed, then they just turn me off because they have no idea what the Constitution is all about. We are not a democracy. We are a democratic republic. And that means that people, the individuals really count. When you talk about a democrat society, it's mob rule. And that's where we're at right now. And you've got people like Pelosi and Schumer, who at one time supported a border wall. They are not in touch with the American people. Every political thing that I see that talks about someone taking a poll, then everybody wants the wall. There's a few that don't, but majority want a wall, and they're just ignoring the people. They're just going along with what they want and their money. And another thing, when politicians go into politics and they get elected and they go in almost broke and then they come out millionaires, how does that work? I don't understand it. They shouldn't be able to be allowed to be that long in position. Their positions of power is what they want. They just want the power. They like the notoriety, and they don't care what they say about or for the people because they're not supporting us. So have a great day, Kevin. Love your show. Love what you're talking about here, and everybody calling in. You've got the greatest show on earth. So
well, that's only because of you. Boy, going back to 2012, remember we were cheering for Romney, and we were excited, and then we all went down with the Romney ship.
Oh, yeah. I voted for Romney. I was hoping that he would do better. I was supporting him, but when he finally did the things that he did, I pulled back. I don't know. He's gotten elected now to the Senate. The first thing he does is has to do an op-ed about the president instead of supporting him. If we got all of the Republicans on board and they rallied around like the Democrats do, right, wrong, or indifferent, then we would have a wall built by now. For the last 30 years, we've been promised a wall, and we haven't gotten it. And the areas they do have a wall, they prove that they work. Maybe not 110%, maybe not only 90%, but they prove they work. And the people that run around saying they don't, they've got a screw loose in their head, and they need to reevaluate. People like Liberal Steve, who just doesn't care who comes in here. I don't understand it. I just don't understand the American way of thought. But you take care of yourself. Happy New Year. It's going to be a fun fight. I hope the president wins. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Patriot Ray.
God bless you.
God bless you. R&R joins us now with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Morning. Hey, my concept is Romney was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he just never took it out. And the the difference between Trump, because he was born very wealthy too, but President Trump has built and constructed and kind of got the spoon out of his mouth long enough to go out and get an education on what it is to be president. So I think Romney just should have kept his mouth shut, and this thing will blow over, but it kind of showed the person that Romney always has been. I think we're enough said about that. So what I think the whole state of Idaho is about in for is time for change, and I do believe that Brad Little will have an open door policy. I think we've got to change probably the top down and from bottom up. We've got to get respect for the police and the laws. So it's time to change some of these laws. The ones you were talking about just recently about how an uninformed neighbor or a neighbor that has it out for you they can go to the police and just lie. And it's only a misdemeanor to fill out a police report. Some of this stuff has to change where, and I'll go back to Kavanaugh. If Kavanaugh could have that whole united front of evil thrown up against him and it was only the FBI that stopped it, we've got to have justice in Idaho at least. I don't know what we can do about the U.S. of A., but Idaho has to change some laws.
Good point, R&R. I got to run. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Out to Washington, D.C., Fox News Radio's Rachel Sutherland. Rachel, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
A big day for you, the country, and Congress.
Well, it is a big day on the Hill for sure. Coming up here in about a couple hours or so, the Senate will convene as well as the House in the 116th Congress. First of all, they have to say goodbye to 115th, but then the 116th will be seated. The Vice President will swear in the senators, and once a House Speaker is chosen, presumably Nancy Pelosi, she will swear in the new House members. Now, she could lose, but we don't think so, according to the head count, the speakership. She could lose 22 votes and still become Speaker, but we're thinking more along the lines of 16, 17 may vote no when it comes to Nancy Pelosi. These are the never Nancy folks. But there's not really an alternative for Speaker unless you want to be. I mean, anyone can be Speaker of the House. You don't have to be a member.
I see. I just wonder, Nancy Pelosi must be feeling pretty strong. There's just no opposition.
There's really no opposition to her, no. And she is expected to prevail. And then the first thing that they're going to do is take up this package of bills that is designed to reopen the government but has no chance because it doesn't include any money for the border wall, and the president said no go on that. So we're now in day 13 of the shutdown, and a lot of people aren't noticing. But here in D.C. they are. And interestingly, Washington Post this morning reporting that in Superior Court in D.C., there exists, we know, the marriage license office. Well, their people are getting turned away. So happy couples not so happy. They can't get married. I mean, the flowers could wilt. I mean, some of them are going through their ceremonies anyway, and I guess it could go to Vegas or whatever. But,
right.
You know, they have the party set, and so they're having their weddings, but they're not officially married.
Well, yeah, 50% of marriages end in divorce, so.
I wonder if people can get divorced in D.C., if that's being held up, too.
Boy, a lot of things going on. Does anybody really miss the government besides people getting married?
Well, I think maybe some people do. We can't go to the National Zoo anymore. It's closed. The Panda Cam is dark. But seriously, in all seriousness, the IRS, try to call the IRS. I tried to call them last week. It goes straight to a message that says they'll resume normal operations as soon as possible. Basically, no one to talk to. And here you have, in just a couple of weeks, really the start of this tax season under a brand new tax code. So there are some impacts that people will feel. It's going to be like, it's kind of like you see the steamroller coming down the way, and you know it's coming. But
well, that might eventually hit people that get tax returns, though. You know, they get rebates.
In fact, according to the Wall Street Journal today, they're reporting that it could delay tax returns. So you still owe the IRS, but you may not get your your money in any reasonable amount of time.
Right.
So, I mean, look, it does have an impact. It has a slow-moving impact, but we don't know how long it'll last. The longest government shutdown in history was 21 days. We'll see if the government exceeds that this time.
Rachel Sutherland, any ideas when you think this will be taken care of?
No. All I can really say is but the one thing that's true about Washington is things can change very quickly. Someone's going to want to be the hero to reopen the government. Someone's going to want to own reopening. And when that occurs and people pivot from pointing fingers to wanting to become a hero, then maybe the government can reopen. If maybe Democrats started clamoring for a fix for DACA, the people brought here illegally as children, then everybody has to walk away from the negotiation table with something in their goodie bag, or people aren't going to deal. And right now, Democrats aren't getting anything, the president's not getting anything, so nobody's moving. But if someone can offer up something to make the other side happy, then there might be a deal.
Right. They just seem to think that each side thinks they have something to gain, and I don't think that Nancy Pelosi and Senator Schumer are in any rush to do anything.
Not yet. I think that their base wants them to oppose pretty much everything the president does. And so in this case, they feel emboldened by the midterms, and they're coming in and they're starting with swinging. I mean, they're coming out. But, I don't know how long it'll go. One thing's for sure, I don't think the government can just stay closed indefinitely, but we've never tried it. So there's a first time for everything.
Until you're the one that is shut out. I think a lot of us feel the same way. Rachel, we appreciate you. I know it's a very busy day, so thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Bye-bye. Donna in Parma joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Donna.
Thank you, Kevin. I would like to say something to Chuck and Nancy. I'm a born and raised Texan. I would like them to go down to Laredo, Texas, and stay there for 2 weeks. Nancy just took that fancy vacation to Hawaii. So, hey, she needs to put her money where her mouth is, And I hate what's going on with the government shutdown, but I stand by my president. Stay there until those people give you what you want. And the border is so precious. And I wish you a Happy New Year, Kevin.
Donna, Happy New Year. Stay the course, Mr. President. That's what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Well, you have a blessed day. Take care.
Bless you, too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Boy, born and raised Texan right here in Idaho. Here's Nancy Pelosi on KIDO Talk Radio talking about going to Hawaii.
The president took a swipe, I think, as recently as today, saying that you went on vacation to Hawaii during the shutdown. Now, you had said before the shutdown that he was being quite cavalier and that maybe the shutdown would give him more time to golf. But in the end, it was you that took a holiday.
Why don't I take a holiday? I observed the Christmas holiday for a few days, and why cut in half the time I would have had with my family.
Was that a cheap shot?
But the fact, it's not. It's unimportant.
Notice how Savannah Guthrie from the Today Show continues to lead. Look, Nancy Pelosi, there are people that are out of work. There are people that stayed in Washington. I did think it was, well, the president does live in Washington, but the president didn't vacation because the media would have roasted him. So he stays in Washington. Everybody else goes home. Nancy Pelosi goes to Hawaii. Great time for her. But what about the rest of us? That's the deal. Are you representing the people, or are you just, the new royalty? That's really what it seems.
It's totally unimportant. But the fact is, we all stood ready, and we told our members we'll have 24 hours notice for all of us to be where we need to be. And the president may not know this, but Hawaii is part of the United States of America. Maybe he doesn't realize that. I don't know where the president observed the religious holiday of Christmas. Do you?
There we have it. So Nancy Pelosi, remember, we want to get along. We want to work with the president. We want to do these things. So earlier on the Today Show, she was asked about indicting a sitting president. Now, Nancy Pelosi is a lot of things. I don't believe that she's an attorney. Here's another example of the media creating this self-fulfilling prophecy based on absolutely nothing but utter speculation and their need to derail Trump, to make an example of the president, to make sure that no one, and we repeat, no one ever has enough gall to beat the media and the Democrats at their own game.
Talking about impeachment. You've said it would be sad and divisive for the country to pursue impeachment.
Yeah.
Are you willing to rule it out?
Well, we have to wait and see what happens with the Mueller report. We shouldn't be impeaching for a political reason, and we shouldn't avoid impeachment for a political reason. So we'll just have to see how it comes.
Do you believe the special counsel should honor and observe the Department of Justice guidance that states a sitting president cannot be indicted?
I do not think that that is conclusive. No, I do not.
So you think it's possible that special counsel Mueller could legally indict a sitting president?
Let's just see what Mueller does. Let's spend our time on getting results for the American people.
As you well know, there is long-standing Department of Justice guidance that states a sitting president should not be indicted. But it is not the law.
That is not the law. Everything indicates that a president can be indicted after he is no longer president of the United States.
What about a sitting president?
Well, sitting president when he's no longer president of the United States.
A president who is in office.
Okay.
Could Robert Mueller come back and say, I am seeking an indictment?
I think that that is an open discussion. I think that is an open discussion in terms of the law.
Talk about your dynamic with President Trump. What's it like to negotiate with him?
When you're negotiating with someone, you have to know, you stipulate to some fact. It's hard to do that with the president because he resists science, evidence, data, truth. It's hard to pin the president down on the facts.
And there we have it, Nancy Pelosi. It's not going to be bipartisan. It's going to be a witch hunt. Brian in Nampa with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, Kevin. I just have to say, after hearing that, heaven help us with Nancy Pelosi back. Oh, my gosh.
She's back, everybody.
Like the Wicked Witch of the West, or the East, whatever. Oh, my gosh. I'm tactically breathing right now to get through that one. So,
I'm with you.
And just a quick note, I love the shutdown. Leave it down. Let's find out what we really don't need and what we do need. And then it would be really nice if our leaders would get rid of those things we don't need. And wouldn't it be nice if they spent less money and we got out of debt? You know, that would be awesome. I know some people aren't working, and I've been there. I've actually worked for the government and been through this kind of stuff. It's not fun, but hey, we all have to adapt and adjust and move on. That's life. So yesterday you said I was out of my, as you quote, I was in my wrong mind over the turtle thing. So I just wanted to clarify a few things in full disclosure. I grew up on a ranch. My grandma had thousands of chickens. At an early age, I was, how do we put it, disposing of chickens and processing them to be eaten. I've done the same thing with cattle and all kinds of things. So maybe I am in my wrong mind. I don't know. You're going to have to clear that for me. But when I went to high school, my science teacher had all kinds of different animals, and we would feed animals to them, and we didn't think it was a big deal. That's Idaho, and, you always talk about how, the libs or the left is going to change Idaho, and you're right, they have. Look what's happening with this turtle thing.
Right, but I mean, on one hand, you can't have it both ways. If it's educational, then do it during the school year. Don't say it happened after school, it was no big deal, and then say the puppy was dead. And I don't see the value of feeding a snapping turtle that was killed by the state. I don't see the value of that, feeding him a live puppy.
Okay, so what's the difference between a puppy and a rat or a mouse?
Well, I think when you dissect those things, they're not alive, right? They're dead.
Well, I'm not talking about dissecting them. I'm talking about feeding them. I mean, we had snakes, we had lizards, we would feed them different things. They have to eat. What did you eat this morning, Kevin? Was there meat in it?
Yes.
Okay. So in a court of law, whether or not, if you hire somebody, well, and I'm going to talk a little off the subject for a sec. If I kill a pork or I pay somebody else to kill a pork, I'm still killing the pork, correct?
Sure.
Yeah. That's my point. Now, I know we're more attached to puppies than we are rats and mice. You go to Vietnam, it's a different story.
Right.
And that's my point is, the left is always talking about, we need to be culturally accepting. Well, guess what, people? In Idaho, it's been this way for years.
I don't think, though, in Idaho, people were feeding live puppies to snapping turtles.
Oh, Kevin, I grew up in eastern Idaho.
And you're telling me in
Yeah.
school they fed live puppies to other animals, right?
We fed live animals to all kinds of different stuff. And again, this is my point. I've moved across the country. I've lived in the city and I've lived out in the country. Now, the other day I was on Instagram and I seen a golden eagle latched onto an antelope and doing his thing because he's got to survive. Now, if you grow up out in the country, that's not a big deal. You see that every day. You're used to it. You're acclimated to it. Whereas up in the city, that repulses you and you're like, oh, I can't deal with it.
I think it's apples and oranges. But, Brian, we're going to have to agree to disagree, my friend. I hope you're doing better, though.
Okay. Yeah, I am. It's
good.
Slow, but I am.
All right. Thank you,
Talk to you
Brian.
later.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Spirited discussion about Robert Crossland. We'll talk a little bit about that next. That is the Idaho school teacher that is going on trial. Was it yesterday? Anyway, he's going on trial for feeding a either dead puppy or a live puppy to a snapping turtle that was killed by the state. Details next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget, weekdays noon to 3. It's our friend Dave Ramsey looking for some advice, looking for some fiscal responsibility. Check out Dave Ramsey noon to 3, right after Glenn, right before Sean. And speaking of which, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work.
I'm just Channel 7's Eric Everett.
Let me make it perfectly clear one more time. As I've said consistently for the last 2 weeks, the Senate will not waste its time considering a Democratic bill which cannot pass this chamber and which the President will not sign.
At our last meeting, the President said, I am going to shut the government down. They are now feeling the heat. It is not helping the President. It is not helping the Republicans to be the owners of this shutdown.
Democrats refuse to acknowledge the facts. What the president did today was monumental. He brought them to the White House, to the Situation Room, to have a conversation with Secretary Nielsen so she could brief them on all the crisis that's going on the border. These numbers are devastating, they are sad, they are needless, and they are senseless. And Democrats wanted nothing to do with it.
We're asking the president to open up government. We are giving him a Republican path to do that.
Right. There's Lucy, and she wants the president to be Charlie Brown. Not so fast, my friend. Stay with us.